speaking to you from beautiful Philadelphia. Grammar is important. Good spelling, punctuation. If you're serious about writing, by learning how to use those things well, you learn to write more clearly in a way that people more easily can understand. What I want to talk about is clear thinking leads to clear writing. You could have a work of writing that has perfect grammar, perfect spelling, no ambiguity, and if it's a product of unclear thinking, it still creates a diminished effect for the reader. And that's why I want to introduce to you Socrates. I'm greatly interested in Socrates because he gives a philosophy that's good for everyday use. If you look up Socrates, you'll probably find books by Plato, and if you read some of those, that's a great way to get to know Socrates. Human beings every individual is too small to grasp the entire reality they find themselves in, so we all form a smaller reality that each of us operate in. And the quality of that smaller reality will determine how good your writing can be. If there are serious limitations to that smaller reality, there are going to be serious limitations to any work of art you make. That each of us create a little reality. There is no not doing that. That's the only way we can come to terms with reality at all. So the thing to do is to get better at creating our own personal realities. Your ability to think has a great effect on the world you think you live in. And also, one of the greatest follies for a writer is that every single one of us has our own limitations of experience. There's no getting around it. That is the human condition. And the problem is that when you write something, you're going to have limitations of experience that you can't see. It's a blind spot. You can't see it. But almost everyone else it'll be glaring. They will see it, and it will seem like such a folly. Now, I'm exaggerating a lot. It isn't that extreme, but it's really easy for all of us to see limitations of experience in those around us. Easier for us to see others' limitation than to see our own. Becoming a better thinker is about thinking for yourself, learning to come up with your own conclusions, learning to find out on your own. I moved to Philadelphia recently, and before I had been planning to do so for a while, and so when I would tell people I was going to move to Philadelphia, people had an opinion about what Philadelphia was like, and each time I heard it, I nodded, and I made sure to remember what they said, and in my mind I thought, okay, I am going to see what people way over on the West Coast that I happen to talk to about Philadelphia, how their personal experience of it relates to the actual place. And sure enough, when I moved here, it hardly relates at all to what Philadelphia is actually like. And if I weren't working on the story I'm working on now, I would like to write a story about a protagonist who travels from place to place, and it would be a comedy where each place he moves to is vastly different to how it was described by the people in the last place before he goes there. And Socrates is well known for going to public places and annoying people with questions. Socrates would go up to everyone and anyone and ask them questions designed to challenge common sense, designed to challenge assumptions. Now, humans are social animals, so much so that this affects the way we think. So often we think using common sense. We don't form our own opinions, we follow the crowd and see things the way those around us are seeing things. he would ask people about their beliefs, and what he found was a great inadequacy of things very little thought through about their strongest beliefs and convictions. When you start to develop the practice of challenging your own beliefs, challenging your own assumptions and prejudices and outlooks, world outlooks, you're doing it very much the way science challenges something. It isn't to take something down, it's to get closer to the truth. Developing for yourself your own personal day-to-day philosophy can be a great help to opening up your experience to the amazing reality around you. And of course, we could go and challenge the beliefs and outlooks of others. That's something that we do pretty much anyway. But the real important thing is to challenge your own beliefs and go for the ones that you hold most sacred. Those are the ones that are most important for you to start testing the integrity of, and be willing, if I care so much about this one world outlook, why? Is it really all that I've made it up to be? So we have the Socratic method, and basically it is Socrates' way of critical thinking. What is critical thinking? It's when we don't just think about something, but think about how we're thinking about something. So that we're getting meta about what we're thinking about. Philosophy can get way out there, real esoteric and all of that, but I'm trying to introduce a more down-to-earth philosophy, something that we can use day to day. We can look at writing as a form of thinking. The two at least have very much to do with each other. And as grammatically clear that we make our writing, and in terms of punctuation and spelling, if we make our writing very clear, there's another level to it where if we're writing from muddled or confused or not entirely informed thinking, it will have an effect on our writing. So how do we think more clearly? We do that by learning to think more critically, by not just thinking things through, but adding to that, thinking about how we're thinking things through. I don't know about you, but I find myself in confused thinking all the time, not completely clear about what's what and the way things are. And I like that feeling because it's a chance to discover. So if you find yourself confused about anything, not just about what you're writing about, but about a decision you need to make, try to form it in a Socrates-like question. If you've ever wanted to increase your intelligence, learning to practice critical thinking is absolutely, hands down, one of the greatest ways to increase your intelligence. It doesn't just give you a way to think more clearly. It gives you greater freedom of thought. It gives you a chance to think outside of the box and to think independently and to make up your own decisions and to really make up your own mind. A lot of the times there are people thinking they're making up their own mind when in fact they're following common sense. Critical thinking can allow us to follow through with original and creative inspiration that might otherwise be thwarted by foggy thinking. As an example, you might have a great idea for a story and then you're thinking, oh wait a minute, it doesn't have a protagonist. How can I make this story work and fit in a protagonist? And it just doesn't fly when doing it that way. And then you can ask the question, must every story have a protagonist? And you can challenge that common sense belief. Because critiquing can be an enemy to increasing creative ability, it's a good idea to foster a useful attitude towards critical thinking. What was Socrates' attitude? Socrates believed that the only thing he truly knew was that he didn't know anything at all. This is a great attitude because it sort of lets him off the hook in a way. It realizes he understands that to some extent us humans are always operating under false knowledge, under to some extent we are living a life of illusion, but we can always get closer to what is really there, to what is true, to what is actually happening. Even Newton, known as the father of physics, who understood that the same forces that govern things here on Earth also govern the things seen in the sky, stars, sun, planets. Even him, in the light of what Einstein discovered, to some extent Newton was wrong. So if Newton was wrong in his amazing, brilliant, some of the absolute best discoveries ever made by humans, then we can let ourselves off the hook and realize that even though we're to some extent always living in illusion, that's part of the human condition. We are not trying to, it isn't like we're wrong and we're trying to become right. It's not like we've done something wrong and we're trying to correct it. It's that we recognize when we're confused about something or are in a mode of some muddled thinking about something. And what we're trying to do is not make it right, but to find some clarity, meaning to make discoveries, to be an explorer and find out new things. And so it isn't negative. Muddled thinking, confused thinking, operating under ignorance, assumptions, prejudices. This is part of human life, and as artists we have everyday opportunities to find our ways through that. But all the time, to some extent, we're operating under assumptions that we a lot of the times aren't consciously aware of. These are assumptions that operate on the subconscious level. And by developing critical thinking, we can discover assumptions that we've been operating under, and we can become free of them. And once we discover them, it means enlightenment. It means new revelations about our own lives and about the greater reality. So how can you start doing this? What you can do is that whenever you're confused or feel yourself in a muddled thinking about something, it's unsure, you're unclear about what things mean and what is the best thing to do, this is a great time to go ahead and make a statement or question that you think can kind of get hold of whatever is confusing you. Once you have that statement or question, then you've got a handle on it. Then what you can do is try to find exceptions to it. Situations where that statement would not be true, and test for its integrity and find ways in which that statement does not work out. And once you do that, then you can change the statement around and try to make it more true. Try to change the statement or question in a way that gets closer to, ideally a universal truth, but at least a better understanding of how it can match up to what really happens. So this kind of critical thinking can take you all over the place, and you can make discoveries in all different subjects, and it's a very creative practice. Now when you make that statement or question, it doesn't have to, you can, while you're making it, you know it, you can go ahead and know that the statement or question is wrong, but go ahead and make one so that you have a starting point. So let's go ahead and form a statement. It's always wrong to use the N word. So that's our statement, and this is our starting point. Now what we can do is we can start to take that statement apart. Well, what do we mean by wrong? So historically, the N word has been used to disrespect and dehumanize black people. And it's a derogatory word, meaning that it is a word used to humiliate another group of people. Now we can change our statement around. We can say, well, does the N-word always convey disrespect to black people? Again, we can find something that proves that new statement not completely true. There are a lot of hip-hop songs where the N-word and a version of it has been used in such a way that does not convey disrespect, that does not dehumanize, but has different effects to it, that conveys camaraderie, that is a way of saying, hey, where one black person is saying to other black people, hey, look, this is part of our reality, look how we're in this together, this is part of the reality we live in. Continuing along, that leads us to a new question. So does that now mean that it's okay to use the N-word? For that to be true, what would need to be true is that words always have the same meaning, no matter who is using them. Male, female, black, white, you name it, all the different people in the world. Whoever uses a word, that word always has the same meaning. So if that were true, that would mean that it was always okay to use the N-word. Let's bring in another word and see if it always has the same meaning, no matter who is using it. Let's use the word honey. Now, if your mother calls you honey, what is she saying to you? She's saying that she's glad that you're her child. And if a waitress calls you honey, what is she conveying to you? She's telling you that you're welcome in her restaurant and please make yourself at home. And when a man calls a woman he doesn't know well honey, what is he saying? He's saying that he's sexually interested in her. So we have a new factor in these logical equations that we're working with, and it is that a word can have a different meaning depending on who uses them. So for this little thought experiment, my conclusion can be that sometimes it is not harmful to use the N-word. Sometimes it can be used in a way that makes life a little bit better for all of us, and that me personally, as a white person who happens to be very interested for personal reasons, paying people respect, recognizing the humanity in other people, I choose not to use the N-word because as a white person, that is a choice I can make to pay people more respect. As you probably notice, critical thinking is very much like going down the rabbit hole. You can find yourself going off in all kinds of directions. And with the example I just gave you, I was just scratching the surface. This is where we realize that throughout every day of our lives, life can continue to be a place of discovery. It can continue to be a place where the great mystery that we start to forget is there can still be opened up to us, and we can grow and learn. And also, so critical thinking is hands down one of the best ways to become more intelligent. What kind of intelligence are we talking about? we're talking about wisdom. Socrates and those Plato and those that he talked with, had lots of conversations with, they were interested in wisdom. And in our confusing times, more wisdom is very useful. I highly encourage you to go out and find those books by Plato that feature Socrates and learn more about the system he developed. If you like what you get from my videos and would like to give back, please hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell a friend. And check out the episodic fiction I'm working on story at solomation.com, a very strange alternative reality fiction story. I hope your adventures and explorations in the greater world are wonderful. I hope that your artwork production goes very well, and I hope you have a good day.